Have you ever truly paused to consider just how deeply global our lives have become? I mean, really think about it. Think about the coffee you're sipping right now, or maybe the smartphone in your hand, even the clothes you're wearing. Each item, so often, carries these threads of international trade, complex supply chains, and cooperation woven from literally every corner of the world. It's absolutely astounding when you really start to, pull at those threads and see the sheer interconnectedness of it all. Today, we're taking a deep dive into that fascinating, really intricate world of globalization, international business, and the sophisticated systems that make global trade possible. We're going to unpack the core definitions that shape our understanding, explore the big economic cycles that, dictate booms and busts, examine the immense power of multinational corporations, and get into the real nitty-gritty of imports and exports that underpin everything.
Absolutely. And our mission for this deep dive, it's really to move beyond just listing definitions. We want to unpack these core concepts, help you connect the dots for those, aha moments, and reveal the surprising facts and crucial mechanisms from the sources you've shared with us. Think of it as your shortcut to not just knowing what the forces shaping our world are, but truly understanding how they work and, crucially, why they matter, right down to the specific details that can often get overlooked.
Exactly. We'll start big with globalization itself, exploring what it truly means to be a global village and the different ways we actually define it. Then we'll zoom in on the major players, the big companies driving this interconnectedness. We'll delve into the crucial data that fuels global business decisions. And finally, look at the policies and frameworks that govern this incredibly complex dance. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, right.
Section 1. The concept of globalization defining our global village. Let's kick off with what our sources highlight as the ultimate, you could almost say, aspirational goal of globalization. It's stated as nothing short of securing socioeconomic integration and development of all the people of the world through a free flow of goods, services, information, knowledge, and people across all boundaries. That's a pretty grand vision, isn't it? Almost idealistic, suggesting a truly borderless world of exchange aiming for, shared prosperity.
It is a grand vision, and what's fascinating here is how that broad, sweeping aim translates into more concrete yet still quite varied definitions. At its core, globalization represents the desire to move from national to a global sphere of economic and political activity. So it's about transcending those traditional national boundaries for interactions that were once, confined within a country's borders.
And we've got some specific voices defining it for us, which really help to paint a clearer picture of its multifaceted nature. Edward S. Herman, for instance, offers this kind of dual perspective. He views globalization as both an active process of corporate expansion across borders, a structure of cross-border facilities and economic linkages that's constantly growing and changing.
Right. So he sees it not just as a static state, but this dynamic ongoing force. It's businesses pushing outwards, and it's also the very infrastructure they build, the roads, ports, digital networks that supports that expansion.
That makes sense. Then there's the perspective from Bayliss and Smith. They describe globalization as the process whereby social relations acquire relatively distanceless and borderless qualities.
Now that really broadens the scope beyond just pure economics, doesn't it?
It does. What's the practical impact then of social relations taking on these borderless qualities?
Well, it suggests how we connect socially, how cultures interact almost instantaneously sometimes, and how distant events can suddenly feel much closer, largely thanks to, huge advancements in communication and travel. It's about shrinking the perceived distance between people.
It's also crucial, our sources emphasize, to distinguish between globalization and internationalization. They sound similar, but they have distinct meanings, especially in business strategy. Globalization, as we've been discussing, is more about a company bringing its business to the rest of the world. It's the act of becoming global, the result of that outward push.
Exactly. Whereas internationalization is more about the preparatory stage, the strategic side. It's defined as the practice of designing products, services, and even internal operations to facilitate expansion into international markets. So before you really globalize, you often internationalize first. You're laying the groundwork.
Like making sure your product is easily adaptable. Different languages, maybe different regulations.
Precisely. Adapting for languages, regulatory environments, cultural preferences, making that eventual global leap much smoother and, frankly, more likely to succeed.
Ultimately, though, all these diverse definitions, they underscore this overarching concept of increasing social, economic, cultural, and political cooperation among nations. It's a continuous, complex push towards greater interconnectedness, constantly reshaping our world in ways we're still figuring out.
So, if we're distilling the essence from these foundational definitions, what becomes clear is that globalization is both this grand aspiration and a very practical reality. It's driven by corporate ambition, enabled by social connectivity.
And remembering those specific definitions is key. Edward S. Herman, with his dual focus on corporate expansion and the economic linkages they build,
Right, the process and the structure.
and Bayliss and Smith, emphasizing those distanceless and borderless social relations.
It gives a really comprehensive view, and that nuanced distinction between globalization, the action and result, and internationalization, the strategic prep work, that's a key differentiator to remember too.
So, what does this all mean in practice? What are the actual characteristics that define this global phenomenon on the ground? Our sources highlight 7 salient features that really define and characterize globalization. These are like the foundational pillars, the practical building blocks you'll actually see in action.
These features are like the foundational pillars, exactly. The first one is liberalization. Now, this isn't just a buzzword. It really stands for the freedom of entrepreneurs to establish any industry, trade, or business venture within their own country or, importantly, abroad. It's about removing those government-imposed barriers to entry, allowing businesses to operate with much greater autonomy.
Okay, liberalization, what's next?
Next up, free trade. This stands for the unhindered flow of trade relations among all nations, aiming to reduce things like tariffs and quotas that block trade. And a key aspect here, a specific detail worth noting, is that each state grants MFN status to other states.
MFN. What does that stand for?
Good question. It stands for Most Favored Nation, MFN status. It essentially means a country agrees to treat all its trading partners who also have MFN status equally. So the best trade terms offered to any single nation, like the lowest tariff on a product, get extended to all other MFN partners. It's a cornerstone of non-discriminatory global trade.
Got it, most favored nation. Okay, feature number 3.
The third is the globalization of economic activity. This feature is about the active process of integrating domestic economies with world economies. It's moving beyond simply trading goods to actually intertwining national financial systems, production processes, even labor markets into a single, more unified global system.
Right, and that ties into the 4th feature.
It does. The fourth is the liberalization of the import-export system. This directly enables that free flow we talked about. This feature is crucial for allowing products and services to move across borders without excessive tariffs, complicated quotas, or, burdensome bureaucratic procedures. It's about easing the physical movement of goods.
Makes sense. Number 5.
Fifth is privatization. This involves moving the state away from ownership of the means of production and distribution. It allows for a freer flow of industrial, trade, and economic activity across borders, often driven by the private sector. The insight here is that by shifting economic control from government to private entities, you often get increased efficiency and responsiveness, which are really key drivers for global competition.
Okay, privatization. What's the 6th feature?
The sixth feature is increased collaborations among entrepreneurs. This is about fostering partnerships, joint ventures, strategic alliances between businesses in different countries. The aim is usually to secure rapid modernization, development, and technological advancement. It's recognizing that in a globalized world, sharing resources and knowledge can accelerate progress much faster than trying to go it alone.
Collaboration makes sense in a connected world. And the final one.
And finally, number 7, economic reforms. This involves encouraging fiscal and financial changes within countries to strengthen free world trade, free enterprise, and market forces. Now, this is where the rubber really meets the road. These aren't just minor tweaks, they're often fundamental shifts in a country's economic policy.
Like changes to currency, taxation, regulations.
Exactly. All designed to make a country more attractive and efficient for global trade and investment. The insight here is that a government's internal policies are just as crucial as external agreements in shaping its global integration. And these reforms often come with, let's be honest, tough choices and significant domestic impacts.
So to recap the essence of how globalization actually functions, these 7 salient features: liberalization, free trade with MFN status,
Most favored nation status.
globalization of economic activity, liberalization of import-export, privatization, increased collaborations and economic reforms, they provide a really comprehensive framework.
And remembering the full form of MFN, most favored nation, is definitely a valuable specific detail.
Now, companies don't just, flick a switch and become global overnight. It's usually a journey, right? A progressive expansion. Our sources outlined 4 distinct stages of globalization for a company, showing a pretty clear path from a purely local focus to a truly global presence.
That's right. It's definitely a staged process. The first is the domestic stage. At this point, a company's market potential is limited entirely to its home country. All production, all marketing facilities, everything is located at home. It's purely focused inward.
Okay, purely domestic. Then what happens?
Then comes the international stage. Here, exports start to increase significantly. And the company usually adopts what's called a multi-domestic approach.
Multi-domestic.
Yeah, it means product design, marketing, advertising. They're specifically adapted to the needs of each individual country it enters. Think of it as customized international engagement. The company recognizes and caters to local differences rather than imposing a single one-size-fits-all strategy.
So, adapting to each market, what's the next level up?
Moving on to the multinational stage. At this point, the company has actual marketing and production facilities located in many countries. This signifies a much deeper commitment than just exporting. And there's a significant indicator for this stage, a crucial detail to remember. More than 1/3 of its sales are outside the country of origin.
More than a third. That specific threshold over 1/3, that's the marker.
That's the key quantitative marker our sources give. It signals a truly multinational presence, not just dabbling in exports.
Okay, over 1/3 of sales abroad? And the final stage.
And finally, the pinnacle. The global stage, sometimes called the stateless stage. These corporations operate in a truly global fashion. They make sales, they acquire resources, labor, materials, capital in whatever country offers the best opportunities and the lowest cost. They operate without a strong allegiance to any single national base. They are, in essence, truly global citizens in their operations, optimizing their entire value chain across borders.
So understanding these 4 stages of globalization, domestic, international, multinational, and global, helps us categorize how companies expand.
Exactly. And that specific threshold, greater than 1/3 of sales outside the country of origin, is a defining characteristic for identifying a company firmly in that multinational stage, a useful benchmark.
Now, beyond just individual companies and how they grow, there's a broader concept of investment globalization. It fits within what's called the world system, contributing to transnational economic integration. Our source material cites the work of Emmanuel Wallerstein on this. He offers a deeper analytical lens, doesn't he?
He really does. Wallerstein conceptualized this intensified exploitation, often aimed at retrieving lost profits or expanding influence, as manifesting in 2 distinct forms: broadening and deepening. These terms describe not just how capitalist economic relationships expand geographically, but also how they intensify their grip globally, penetrating more aspects of life.
Okay, let's break those down. Start with broadening. What does that entail?
In international trade, broadening refers to a country increasing the variety of goods and services it exports or imports. It's essentially expanding its market reach horizontally, you could say, including more diverse products and more trade partners, rather than just relying on a few specialized items or traditional partners.
So expanding the scope of trade, is there a process to this broadening?
Yes, our sources see this broadening as a 3-step process. First, new markets. This involves entering new geographical regions, literally expanding the map of where a country trades, seeking out untouched or underserved territories.
Okay, new places.
Second, product diversification. This means expanding the range of goods and services a country exports, moving beyond its traditional specialties. So if a country is known for exporting, say, coffee, it might start exporting electronics too, adding complexity.
Diversifying what they sell.
And third, sector diversification. This is about moving into entirely new industry sectors for export, maybe to cater to changing global demand or develop new areas of competitive advantage. Taking product diversification a step further, diversifying the entire economic base involved in trade.
Okay, that's broadening. New markets, more products, new sectors. Now for deepening, what's that about?
Deepening refers to the increased application of capitalist economic relationships to more facets of life within societies already integrated into the world system. So if broadening is about expanding the map, deepening is about market forces penetrating much deeper into existing social and economic structures, almost invisibly reshaping them from within.
Penetrating deeper into society. How does that happen?
Our source identifies 5 distinct methods of this application, this deepening, and they're attributed specifically to Hopkins and Wallerstein in 1982. That year, 1982, is a key detail to remember for this specific attribution.
Okay, 1982. What are the 5 methods?
The first is commodification. This is the process of turning more aspects of life, things previously not bought or sold, into tradable goods or services.
Like,
Well, think of something that was once maybe a favor between neighbors, like childcare or home repairs, now becoming professionalized and sold as a market service. That's commodification extending market logic into new spheres of life.
got it. Second method.
Second, mechanization. This is the practice of using machinery to maximize worker output, thereby increasing the value of technological innovation and efficiency in production. It's leveraging technology to produce more, faster, often cheaper, transforming labor processes.
Okay, machines taking over more tasks. Third,
Third, contractualization. This refers to the increasingly legalistic nature of economic and social relations. More and more interactions, from formal employment agreements down to even casual transactions, are formalized through written contracts, reducing informality and increasing legal enforceability.
everything spelled out in contracts. Fourth,
Fourth, interdependence. This involves the growth of a highly specialized division of labor, which then necessitates the exchange of goods and services. This leads to less and less self-sufficiency for individual nations or regions, making them more reliant on complex global supply chains and the specialized production of others. Nobody makes everything themselves anymore.
right, specialization leads to dependence. And the fifth method.
The fifth method is polarization. This describes an increasing disparity, a widening gap in levels of wealth and political organization between what Wallerstein termed core states, wealthy, dominant, and periphery states, less developed, often exploited, within the world system. It highlights the often unequal distribution of benefits from this deepening of capitalist relations, potentially exacerbating global inequalities.
So Emmanuel Wallerstein's work on broadening and deepening gives us this incredibly detailed framework. It shows how capitalism itself expands and intensifies globally, whether reaching new places or penetrating deeper into societies.
Exactly. Those three steps of broadening and the five methods of deepening, like commodification and polarization, really illustrate the multifaceted and often profound nature of this expansion. And remember that date, 1982, for Hopkins and Wallerstein's contribution on the deepening methods.
Okay, shifting gears slightly. We might think of globalization as this constant linear progression always moving forward. But history suggests it's more cyclical, right? Our sources mention economic cycles and specifically highlight Kondratiev cycles. These sound interesting. They describe a longer-term rhythm.
They do. They're fascinating because they describe the long-term rhythm, almost, as you said, the tides of the global economy. A Kondratiev cycle is defined as a long-term economic cycle that lasts about 50 to 60 years. That duration, 50, 60 years, is the key characteristic. It's also known by several other names, which are good to keep in mind: a Kondratiev wave, a supercycle, or simply a long wave.
50 to 60 years, that's a huge time frame compared to typical business cycles. What causes these massive waves?
They're fundamentally believed to be caused by major production innovations. Think transformative technological shifts, like the Industrial Revolution with the steam engine, or the spread of electricity, or more recently, the information technology revolution. These cycles are often observed in long-term price trends for things like copper or agricultural commodities, reflecting these underlying technological shifts.
So they describe these long-term cycles of boom and then depression in capitalist economies.
Essentially, yes. The key insight is how innovation drives these significant decades-long shifts in global economic activity. You get an expansive period of growth fueled by the new technology, followed by a period of correction or stagnation as that technology matures, only for potentially a new wave of innovation to start the cycle all over again. Understanding these long waves can be incredibly valuable for long-term strategic planning, both for businesses and for governments trying to navigate these larger economic currents.
So for our listeners, what exactly is a Kondratiev cycle? Remember, it's significant duration, approximately 50 to 60 years, and its alternative names: Kondratiev wave, supercycle, or long wave. Key details for understanding those big macroeconomic patterns interacting with globalization. Okay, let's move into section 2. The nuts and bolts of global business making it happen. For globalization to really take root and flourish, it's not just about wanting it to happen. Certain foundational conditions need to be in place, right? Our sources identify 6 essential conditions that are crucial for successful global expansion. What are they?
Absolutely. It's not spontaneous. The first condition is business freedom. This means there shouldn't be unnecessary government restrictions like, say, import limitations, severe restrictions on sourcing finance from abroad, or major barriers to foreign investment. Without that basic liberty to operate internationally, companies simply can't globalize effectively.
Makes sense? Freedom to operate. What's second?
Second, facilities. An enterprise's ability to develop globally from its home base depends heavily on adequate infrastructural facilities. Think about reliable transportation networks, ports, roads, rail, advanced communication systems, stable energy supply. These are absolutely vital for global reach and efficiency. Without them, even the most innovative company will struggle.
Infrastructure is key. Third.
Third,
So government backing helps. Fourth condition.
fourth, resources. Pretty straightforward, but crucial. Companies that are more resourceful, whether that means abundant capital, cutting edge technology, a highly skilled labor force, or strong brand recognition, they naturally find it easier to thrust ahead in the global market. Having ample, quality resources provides a distinct competitive edge.
Resources matter.
Fifth, competitiveness. A firm gains competitive advantage from a whole range of factors. Things like low costs and prices, superior product quality, strong product differentiation, offering something unique, technological superiority, excellent after-sales services, and of course, robust marketing strategies. Without these elements of competitiveness, competing on a global stage is incredibly difficult. You'll likely be outmaneuvered by better equipped rivals.
You need to be competitive. And the last one.
And finally, number 6, orientation. This refers to having a global orientation on the part of business firms and developing suitable globalization strategies. This isn't just about having the ability to globalize, like having the resources. It's also about having the mindset and the strategic plans to think and act globally from the outset, understanding diverse markets, cultures, and competitive landscapes. It's a way of thinking.
Right, the mindset and the strategy. So these 6 essential conditions for globalization: business freedom, facilities, government support, resources, competitiveness, and orientation. They're the critical foundational elements.
Exactly. Lacking significantly in any of these can seriously hinder a company's or even a whole nation's ability to participate effectively in the global economy.
Now, globalization isn't just one single thing, is it? It impacts various aspects of society in quite distinct ways. Our sources break it down into 4 different forms, which helps us understand its multifaceted nature and the different dimensions of our interconnected world.
That's a great point. It's definitely not monolithic. Starting with the most commonly discussed one, economic globalization. This is all about integration with the world economy, primarily through the removal of trade barriers, processes like privatization, and general economic liberalization. It's the free flow of capital, goods, and services across borders, directly impacting markets and industries worldwide.
Okay, economic. What else?
Then there's cultural globalization. This is described as a worldwide assimilation, or at least interaction, of cultural values and norms. It happens through communication networks, global media, tourism, television. Think of the spread of global music genres, fashion trends, international cuisine, or even global brands becoming household names everywhere. It leads to both cultural enrichment and sometimes concerns about local cultures being overshadowed.
Cultural flows. Third form.
Third, we have political globalization. This involves the integration of the world community in terms of shared ideas, norms, and values regarding governance and international relations. It provides forums like the United Nations or regional blocs for exchanging ideas on critical global issues: human rights, democracy, child labor, international security. It involves treaties and international organizations aiming to establish shared global standards and cooperation.
Global governance and norms. And the last one.
And increasingly vital today, especially given current challenges, is environmental globalization. This is the worldwide effort focused on the protection of the global ecology, specifically concerning issues like climate change, global warming, depletion of the ozone layer, growing pollution, cross-border issues like acid rain, and the alarming loss of biodiversity. The core insight here is that environmental problems simply don't respect national borders. Pollution from one country affects others, climate change is a shared threat, so global cooperation is absolutely necessary to address them.
Right. So understanding these 4 different forms of globalization, economic, cultural, political, and environmental, and what each entails, gives you a much more comprehensive picture of how interconnected our world truly is, and how these forces shape our daily lives in so many different ways. Okay, so how do companies actually do globalization? It's one thing to talk about the concept, another to put it into practice on the ground. Our sources list 5 practical methods that companies commonly employ to expand their reach across borders. Each seems to represent a different level of commitment and risk.
Indeed. They range from relatively simple entry strategies to very deep long-term commitments. The simplest, and often an initial step, might be licensing. This is where one company grants permission to another company in a foreign market to use its intellectual property, maybe a patent, a trademark, a specific production process, usually in exchange for a fee or royalty payments. It's a relatively low risk, low investment way to get your brand or technology into a foreign market.
Licensing seems straightforward. What's next?
Then there are strategic alliances. These are specific contractual agreements between two or more companies, often competitors or complementary firms, for a certain period of time to pursue a common goal. It's about collaboration, sharing resources or expertise perhaps for a specific project, or entering a new market together, but without a full merger or creating a new jointly owned entity. Think of airlines code sharing on international routes. They remain separate companies but cooperate for mutual benefit.
Collaboration without merging.
Yeah.
Okay. A very common method must be exporting.
Absolutely. Exporting is simply selling products made in the home country overseas. It represents a slightly higher commitment than licensing, involving logistics and market engagement, but it often involves a whole network of intermediaries to make it happen smoothly. Agents, brokers, banks for financing, insurance companies to cover transit risks. It's about leveraging existing production capacity at home to tap into foreign demand.
Exporting. Then we get into deeper commitments.
Yes. Next, we have joint ventures. This is a more significant partnership with foreign companies. It involves shared equity, meaning shared ownership in a new venture created specifically for that purpose. It typically involves the transfer of technology, management know-how, and shared responsibilities for production and marketing in the target market. It's a much deeper, more integrated commitment than a strategic alliance, often essential for navigating complex local regulations or cultural nuances with a local partner.
Shared ownership, deeper integration, and the final method.
And finally, the most significant long-term commitment, and often the one with the most control and potentially the highest reward, is foreign direct investment, FDI. This is a long-term capital investment made directly into facilities or assets in a foreign country. It can be done through mergers and acquisitions, buying an existing foreign company, or through greenfield investment, building completely new facilities like a factory or office. FDI gives a company significant control and a direct physical presence in a foreign market. This represents the deepest form of global integration for a company.
Okay, so identifying these 5 methods of globalization, licensing, strategic alliances, exporting, joint ventures, and foreign direct investment, FDI, and understanding what each involves.
Right, especially the differences like the contractual nature of a strategic alliance versus the shared equity of a joint venture.
Is key to grasping how companies execute their global strategies and manage those varying levels of risk, control, and reward. All right, section 3, major players, multinational corporations. When we talk about global business, one term absolutely dominates the conversation. The multinational corporation, or MNC. They are the behemoths, the real engines, some would say, of the global economy. What exactly defines an MNC according to our sources? How do we pin down what makes a company multinational?
Well, the primary definition provided is quite clear. An MNC is a company incorporated in one country, which we call the home country, but whose operations extend beyond the home country and which carries on business in other countries, called the host countries, in addition to the home country. So it's fundamentally a legal entity with a registered home base, but with active, ongoing business operations crossing national borders into one or more host nations.
Okay, a company operating in multiple countries beyond its home. Our sources also give us another, perhaps even more concise definition.
Yes, from Neil H. Jacoby. He states that a multinational corporation simply owns and manages business in 2 or more countries. This definition really emphasizes those twin aspects of ownership and active management across multiple national borders. It highlights the direct control and engagement in foreign markets, not just passive investment.
Owns and manages in 2 or more countries. Simple, but powerful. Now, to truly appreciate the scale and complexity of MNCs, it's helpful to see how international business fundamentally differs from purely domestic business. Our sources provide a great comparison across 9 specific criteria. This really highlights the additional challenges and opportunities involved when you start operating globally.
Absolutely. The differences are stark across these 9 areas. Let's run through them. First, in terms of meaning. Domestic business is conducted strictly within a country's geographical boundaries, while international business, by definition, is conducted with several countries.
Okay, scope. What about the area of operation?
Again, a huge difference. Domestically, it's limited to within the country. Internationally, the potential area of operation is, theoretically, the whole world. That's a massive scale difference, bringing immense complexity.
Right. And quality standards.
Often quite different. Domestically, standards might be relatively low, perhaps only needing to meet local requirements or customer expectations. Internationally, quality standards tend to be very high, needing to meet diverse global benchmarks, stringent regulations in different markets, and often higher consumer expectations.
Higher standards globally. What about currency? Deals in.
Domestically, you deal in a single currency, straightforward. Internationally, you're inevitably dealing with multiple currencies, which introduces complex challenges like exchange rate risk, currency conversion costs, and the need for sophisticated financial management.
Multiple currencies. And capital investment.
Generally, much less capital is needed for domestic operations compared to the huge amounts required for international business.
Yeah.
Setting up factories, distribution networks, marketing campaigns across multiple countries requires significant capital expenditure.
Huge investment needed. How about restrictions?
Domestically, restrictions are relatively few, usually operating under a single, fairly uniform legal and regulatory environment. Internationally, you face many restrictions: diverse national laws, tariffs, quotas, trade agreements, specific regulations on everything from labor to environment in each host country. It's a complex web.
Many more hurdles internationally. What about the nature of customers?
At home, customers are usually relatively homogeneous, sharing similar cultural traits, language, and preferences. Abroad, customers are highly heterogeneous, different cultures, languages, tastes, buying habits. This demands significant adaptation in products, marketing, and communication strategies.
Diverse customers need diverse approaches. And business research.
Generally easier domestically. You have cultural familiarity, readily available data in your own language. Internationally, research becomes difficult: language barriers, cultural nuances that are hard to grasp, data availability challenges, higher research costs.
Harder to understand foreign markets. And the last one, factors of production.
Things like labor, land, and capital. Domestically, these factors are relatively free to move or be acquired within the country. Internationally, their movement or acquisition is often restricted by national regulations on immigration, land ownership, capital controls, and so on.
Restrictions on resources, too.
Yeah.
So to recap these important distinctions, definitely recall Neil H. Jacoby's definition of an MNC owning and managing in 2 or more countries.
Yes, that's a concise one.
And pay close attention to those 9 bases for comparison between domestic and international business. That comparison really underscores why international business is such a specialized and demanding field, far more complex than just operating at home.
It really does illustrate the leap in complexity.
Now, it seems it's not just one type of MNC out there. Our sources actually differentiate between several types of international corporations, including multinational and transnational companies. Each seems to have a slightly different operating model. The nuance lies in how centralized they are versus how much they adapt locally.
That's exactly right. The level of centralization versus local adaptation is key. Both multinational companies, MNCs, and transnational companies, TNCs, share common ground. They both maintain management headquarters in one country, the home country, and operate actively in several other countries, host countries. And they are both typically considered main drivers of the local economy in those host countries due to their investment, job creation, and general economic activity.
Okay, so MNCs and TNCs both operate in multiple countries. What's the key distinction, particularly for TNCs?
The key distinction our sources highlight for TNCs is this. While they have invested in foreign operations and have a central corporate facility, they crucially give decision-making and marketing powers to each individual foreign market. This means much greater local autonomy. The local subsidiary of a TNC can tailor its strategies, product adaptations, and marketing campaigns much more directly to the unique cultural and market conditions it faces, without needing constant centralized approval. This makes them potentially highly responsive to local needs.
More local power for TNCs. What about other types?
We also have international companies. These are essentially importers and exporters. The critical differentiator here is that they have no direct investment outside of their home country. Their international presence is purely through trade, buying, and selling goods across borders, not through owning or managing foreign facilities, factories, or offices.
Okay, traders only. Then there are global companies.
Yes. Global companies have invested and are present in many countries, similar to MNCs and TNCs. However, their defining characteristic is that they market their products through the use of the same globally coordinated image and brand in all markets. Think of a universally recognized brand like, say, Coca-Cola or McDonald's, where the core product, brand, and messaging are largely consistent everywhere, aiming for universal appeal and economies of scale in marketing.
A single global brand. So how does that differentiate them from multinational companies, MNCs, again in this specific context?
Good question. It clarifies the MNC definition further. While multinational companies, MNCs, also invest directly in other countries, they do not necessarily have coordinated product offerings in each country. Instead, MNCs often adapt their products, branding, and marketing strategies specifically for each market they operate in, without necessarily maintaining a unified global brand image for everything. So a product might have the same name globally, but its formulation, features, or advertising could be significantly different from one country to the next to suit local tastes or regulations. More adaptation, less global uniformity compared to a global company.
Okay, so the critical nuance distinguishing these types, MNCs, TNCs, international companies, and global companies, lies in that balance between global coordination versus local adaptation, and whether there's direct investment in foreign operations.
Precisely. Understanding these differences helps us appreciate the diverse strategic choices companies make when they operate on a global scale.
Now, before we dived into the specific pros and cons of MNCs for the countries they operate in, our source briefly touches on a distinction that's really relevant to how companies adapt, especially on a global scale. It's about organizational change versus organizational transformation. It sounds like more than just semantics.
It is. It speaks to the depth of adaptation required, especially when facing major global shifts or entering vastly different markets. Organizational change, as defined here, is essentially about changing the way of doing business in some manner. It's a modification or adjustment to existing processes, structures, or strategies. Typically, it doesn't go into the depth of what a person feels about the change, or at least it's not primarily intended to address that emotional level. Think of it like redecorating a room. You change the paint, the furniture, maybe the layout, but the fundamental structure of the house remains the same.
Surface level adjustments. So how is organizational transformation different?
Organizational transformation goes much, much deeper. The change here goes to the very core, the very depth of what individuals within the organization feel. It will affect what people feel about the organization itself. It's a fundamental shift in identity, in culture, in core values, maybe even in the fundamental mission of the organization. It's like rebuilding the entire house from the foundations up. It requires a much more profound and often very emotional commitment from everyone involved. It's a complete reimagining, not just an adjustment.
Wow, that's a big difference. So understanding that distinction between organizational change, those surface level modifications, and organizational transformation, the deep emotional identity affecting shifts, is crucial.
Yes, especially when considering how companies adapt to global markets. Sometimes mere change isn't enough to compete or integrate effectively. A fundamental transformation might be required to genuinely succeed in a drastically different environment.
Right. Let's look at the impacts now, starting with the bright side. MNCs, for all their complexity and potential drawbacks, clearly bring significant benefits to the countries that host their operations, the host countries. Our sources list 9 key advantages. These really underscore their positive economic impact and influence. What's the first one?
Foremost among these, and perhaps the most visible, is employment generation. MNCs often create large-scale job opportunities in host countries. This happens both directly within their own operations, think factory workers, managers, sales staff, and indirectly through stimulating demand in their local supply chains, creating jobs at local suppliers and service providers. This can be a huge boost, especially in developing nations.
Jobs are crucial. What's the second advantage?
Second, an automatic inflow of foreign capital. MNCs bring in much-needed investment, often in the form of foreign direct investment, FDI. This capital injection can be vital for rapid development, especially in developing countries where domestic capital might be scarce. It can fuel industrial growth, help upgrade technology, build infrastructure, and generally expand the host country's economic capacity.
Capital inflow.
Third, the proper use of idle resources. Because MNCs often bring advanced technical knowledge, sophisticated managerial expertise, and access to global markets, they can effectively utilize physical and human resources in the host country that might otherwise be idle or underutilized. They can turn dormant assets into productive capacity, generating wealth and opportunity where it might not have existed before.
Using resources effectively. Fourth advantage.
Fourth, they can lead to an improvement in the balance of payment position for the host country. MNCs often establish production facilities in host countries specifically to export goods to other markets around the world. By increasing the host country's exports, they directly help to improve its trade balance and earn valuable foreign currency, strengthening its overall financial position.
Helping the trade balance.
Fifth, technical development. MNCs often act as a crucial vehicle for the transference of technical advancements from their home country or other advanced economies to the host country. They bring new technologies, modern production processes, and sometimes R&D capabilities. They carry out technical development directly in host countries, which fosters local innovation, upgrades industrial capabilities, and helps the local workforce gain new skills.
Spreading technology. Sixth,
Sixth, managerial development. MNCs often help professionalize management in the host country along the latest lines of management theory and practice. They do this through training local staff in modern business techniques, exposing them to global best practices, and implementing sophisticated organizational structures. This builds invaluable human capital and management capacity in the host country.
improving management skills. Seventh advantage.
Seventh, the end of local monopolies. The entry of powerful MNCs often injects intense competition into previously protected or stagnant domestic markets. This competition forces existing local monopolies, which might have been inefficient or exploitative, to either improve their products, increase their efficiency, or reduce their prices. This ultimately benefits consumers through greater choice, better quality, and lower prices.
Breaking up monopolies, increasing competition.
Eighth,
Eighth,
an improvement in standard of living. By providing high-quality products and services, often at competitive prices due to their global efficiencies and economies of scale, MNCs can help raise the living standards of people in host countries. They make previously unavailable or unaffordable goods and services accessible to a wider population.
better living standards. And the ninth advantage.
And ninth, somewhat more broadly, the promotion of international brotherhood and culture. By integrating the economies of various nations with the world economy, MNCs can, in theory, foster greater understanding and cooperation across national borders. They facilitate business travel, cultural exchange among employees, and create shared economic interest, potentially breaking down barriers between peoples.
Fostering international connection. So it's clear that MNCs offer a compelling package of benefits for host countries. Remembering these 9 advantages is crucial, especially understanding how they impact the balance of payment by boosting exports and their role in breaking up local monopolies to increase consumer welfare. These are tangible, impactful benefits.
They certainly present a strong case for welcoming MNC investment.
Of course, it's rarely that simple. There's always a flip side. While MNCs offer considerable benefits, they also pose significant challenges and potential drawbacks, particularly from the host country's viewpoint. It's a complex relationship. Our sources detail 9 significant limitations or dangers that need to be considered when evaluating the full impact of MNCs. What's the first concern?
The first, and often a major concern for local businesses, is the danger for domestic country industries. Local industries, especially smaller firms or those in nascent sectors, often struggle immensely to face the intense competition, the advanced technology, the vast financial resources, and the powerful marketing muscle posed by large, established MNCs. This can sometimes lead to the decline or even the complete failure of domestic firms.
Tough competition for local players. Second limitation.
Second, a major economic concern is the repatriation of profits. This is a key term. It means that MNCs naturally send a significant portion of the profits earned in the host country back to their home country, to their headquarters or shareholders there. This outflow of capital can negatively affect the foreign exchange reserves of the host country, diminishing the capital available for domestic investment and potentially weakening the local currency over time.
Profits flowing out. What's the third point?
Third, often there's no benefit to poor people, or at least the benefits are very unevenly distributed. The advantages of MNC presence, like jobs or access to new goods, tend to accrue disproportionately to certain segments of the population. Perhaps those with specific skills needed by the MNC, those living in urban areas where MNCs concentrate, or those who own assets like land. The poorest sections of society or remote rural regions may see little direct benefit.
Benefits might not reach everyone. Fourth,
Fourth, there's a very real danger to independence. Host countries can become overly reliant on foreign corporations for critical inputs like capital, technology, essential goods, and even significant portions of employment. This deep reliance can potentially compromise their economic sovereignty or even their political independence, giving MNCs undue influence over national policy decisions.
risk of over-reliance. Fifth limitation.
Fifth, a potential disregard of the national interests of the host country. MNCs are primarily driven by their own global strategic goals and profit motives. They might not prioritize aligning their investments with the host country's national development goals, such as developing backward regions, investing in socially beneficial but less profitable sectors, or actively contributing to solving chronic domestic problems like unemployment and poverty if it doesn't fit their corporate strategy.
National interests might be ignored. Next.
Sixth, the misuse of mighty status. With their deep pockets and global reach, MNCs can afford to sustain losses in a particular market for a long time. They might engage in aggressive pricing strategies, predatory pricing, or massive marketing campaigns specifically designed to drive out local competition. Once they've eliminated rivals and achieved a dominant or monopoly position, they can then potentially raise prices and earn huge profits. This can be harmful to long-term market health and consumer welfare.
Using their power to crush competition. Seventh.
Seventh, there's a risk of careless exploitation of natural resources. MNCs, sometimes facing less stringent environmental regulations in host countries compared to their home countries, might exploit natural resources like minerals, timber, or water without sufficient regard for environmental sustainability, long-term ecological impact, or the rights and well-being of local communities who depend on those resources.
Environmental concerns. Eighth.
Eighth, the selfish promotion of alien culture. Through their powerful global branding, advertising, media influence, and the very nature of their products, MNCs can sometimes promote cultural values, lifestyles, and consumption patterns that are foreign to the host country. There's a concern that this can lead to people, especially younger generations, forgetting or devaluing their own cultural heritage, impacting local traditions, languages, and identity.
Cultural impact. And the ninth limitation.
And ninth, more broadly, the exploitation of people in a systematic manner. While not always the case, there are instances and concerns where MNCs might exploit workers through low wages, poor working conditions, long hours, discouraging unionization, or lobbying for policies that favor corporate interests over worker rights, safety standards, and community well-being.
Potential for exploitation.
Right.
So it's critical to understand these 9 limitations of MNCs, particularly remembering the definition of repatriation of profits, that outflow of earnings, and the very real risk they can pose to nascent domestic industries.
Absolutely. It paints a much more balanced picture. It's a complex relationship with undeniable benefits, but also significant potential drawbacks, requiring careful management, regulation, and strategic engagement from host governments to maximize the positives and mitigate the negatives.
Okay, Section 4. Navigating the global market intelligence and trade. In the global arena, knowing your market isn't just helpful. Our sources stress it's absolutely essential for survival and success. You can't just blunder into a new country. This brings us to a crucial concept: international marketing intelligence. What exactly is that?
Marketing intelligence is formally defined as the external data collected by a company about a specific market it wishes to enter or currently operates in. Critically, it's used to make informed investment decisions. Our sources emphasize it's often the first set of data a company analyzes before committing significant resources to a new market entry. But it's also more than that. It's the continuous, everyday data relevant to ongoing marketing efforts. It helps organizations understand what competitors are doing, spot emerging product trends, track shifts in consumer behavior, and identify new market opportunities, allowing them to react quickly and strategically.
So it's both for initial decisions and ongoing adjustments. What kind of intelligence are we talking about?
Our sources broadly point to several key types, giving a clearer picture of the landscape companies need to understand. Competitive intelligence, what rivals are up to; product intelligence, trends and product features; pricing; market understanding, overall market size, growth, segments; and customer understanding, needs, preferences, behaviors. Each focuses on a different vital facet.
Okay, gathering all this intelligence needs a system, right?
Exactly. This collective intelligence effort, when it's systematized and managed properly, leads to the development of a marketing information system, usually abbreviated as MKIS. This is essentially a specialized type of management information system, MIS, specifically designed and tailored to support marketing decision-making. It's the infrastructure, the people, processes, and technology for handling all that marketing data effectively.
Is there a standard definition for MKIS?
Yes, and our sources point to a widely recognized one from Jobber, 2007. He defines an MKIS as a system in which marketing data is formally gathered, stored, analyzed, and distributed to managers in accordance with their informational needs on a regular basis. So remembering that specific year, 2007, for Jobber's definition, grounds our understanding of this systematic approach to managing marketing information.
2007. Got it. Where does all this vital data actually come from? What are the sources feeding into the MKIS?
Our sources list four main sources of marketing information, which together provide a robust picture of the market. First, primary data. This is newly collected information gathered specifically for the current research objective. Think bespoke surveys, focus groups you run yourself, field experiments designed to answer a specific question you have right now.
Data collected firsthand.
Second, secondary data. This refers to data that has already been gathered by someone else for some other purpose, but is available for your present use. Things like government statistics, industry association reports, academic research, publicly available market studies. It's often quicker and cheaper to access than primary data.
Using existing data, third source.
Third, internal data. This comes from within the company itself, representing a rich, often underutilized proprietary source of insights. It includes valuable information like customer purchase histories, detailed sales data broken down by region or product, feedback logs from employees and frontline management staff, and direct customer feedback collected through support channels or satisfaction surveys.
Data from inside the company. And fourth,
Fourth, external data. This is information obtained from outside the company's direct operations, often complementing secondary data, but perhaps more focused on current trends or specific providers. It includes reports from specialized trade associations, data from travel bureaus, if relevant, articles in industry-specific trade journals and periodicals, and reports from commercial market analysis firms, offering broader industry context and economic perspectives.
okay, primary, secondary, internal, external data sources. Now you have all this data. How do you make sense of it all? How do you turn it into actual decisions?
That's where another tool comes in, especially for complex decisions with many variables. Companies often use a decision support system, DSS. This is typically a computer-based tool, often involving software and models, that helps marketers analyze the data they've gathered, evaluate different what-if scenarios like changing pricing or ad spend, and make predictions based on market trends and customer behavior patterns. It's designed to significantly improve the performance and quality of decision-making, augmenting the manager's judgment.
A DSS helps analyze and predict. Is this field evolving?
Absolutely. Technology is constantly changing what's possible. As of 2024, our sources identify 5 different types of DSS that organizations can leverage depending on their specific needs and the nature of the data they are primarily working with. It's important to remember these 5 as they reflect the current state of these tools.
Okay, 5 types as of 2024. What are they?
First, document-driven DSS. This type gathers insights primarily through analyzing textual data, things like reports, articles, press releases, social media posts, customer reviews. It's less about crunching numbers and more about extracting qualitative understanding and sentiment from vast amounts of written sources, often using techniques like natural language processing.
Analyzing text.
Yeah.
Second,
Data-driven DSS. This is probably the most common type. Here, marketing decisions are based primarily on the analysis of large amounts of quantitative data collected from various sources: customer interactions, website analytics, point-of-sale data, loyalty program data, broad market trends. It allows for data-backed insights, segmentation, and targeted campaigns based on hard numbers and statistical models.
crunching the numbers. Third type.
Third, knowledge-driven DSS. This type uses deep existing knowledge and insights that are already within an organization, often codified into expert systems, rule bases, or even AI models. It leverages institutional wisdom or expert knowledge to gather and analyze information, leading to informed strategic decisions based on a comprehensive, often qualitative, understanding of customer needs, market dynamics, or best practices.
Using existing expertise. Fourth,
Fourth, model-driven DSS. This type of DSS uses a specific structured framework or mathematical model, like optimization models, forecasting models, simulation models, or resource allocation models, to analyze and interpret market data. It allows businesses to simulate potential outcomes of different decisions, test hypotheses under different assumptions, and make informed choices based on predictable patterns and calculated risks derived from the model.
using mathematical models. And the fifth type.
Fifth, communication-driven DSS. This type focuses less on the analysis itself and more on effectively sharing and disseminating the insights gained from market data analysis to all the relevant stakeholders within a company. It often involves collaborative platforms, dashboards, and reporting tools designed to ensure the right information reaches the right people in a timely and understandable format to facilitate collective understanding and coordinated decision-making.
Sharing the insights effectively. Wow, quite a breakdown. So a lot of specific details there to capture for understanding market intelligence. We've got Jobber's 2007 definition of MPIS.
Right, the system for managing marketing data.
The four sources of marketing information: primary, secondary, internal, external.
The raw materials for intelligence.
And the five types of DSS as of 2024: document-driven, data-driven, knowledge-driven, model-driven, and communication-driven.
Reflecting the current tools available. These are all crucial for understanding how modern companies gather, process, and use intelligence to make smarter decisions in the complex global marketplace.
Okay, from intelligence gathering to actual action. With all that market intelligence, how does a company take that leap from strategy to tangible global trade? That brings us to the very practical world of XAM export-import trade. Let's start with exports. How is this regulated, say, in a country like India? What's the framework?
In India, the overarching XIM policy, which covers both exports and imports, is regulated by the Foreign Trade Policy. This policy is formally notified by the central government, and it operates specifically under the legal authority of the Foreign Trade Development and Regulation Act 1992. That date, 1992, and the full name of the act are really key pieces of information to remember. This legislation forms the legal backbone for all export and import activities in the country.
1992 Act.
Got it.
So if you're an entrepreneur wanting to start an export business in India, what's involved? Our sources outline quite a few steps.
Yes, it's a structured process. Our sources outline 12 essential steps that aspiring exporters generally need to follow. These aren't just suggestions, they cover legal, financial, and operational necessities.
12 steps. Let's go through them. What's first?
Okay, first steps involve setting up the business entity. Establishing an organization, deciding if it will be a sole proprietorship, a partnership firm, or a private public limited company, and choosing a name and logo. Then, opening a bank account, specifically a current account dedicated to business transactions, usually with a bank authorized to deal in foreign exchange. Next, obtaining a PAN account, the permanent account number from the income tax department, which is crucial for all financial transactions and tax compliance. Absolutely critical is obtaining an IEC number. That stands for Import-Export Code. This is a 10-digit code mandatory for anyone engaging in import or export activities in India. You can't trade internationally without it.
IEC Import-Export Code. Mandatory. What else in this initial phase?
Then, getting a registration cum membership certificate, or RCMC. This certificate is obtained from the relevant Export Promotion Council, EPC, or commodity board associated with your main line of products. It helps exporters avail benefits under the Foreign Trade Policy.
Okay, organization, bank, PAN, IEC, RCMC. What about choosing what and where to sell?
Exactly. The next steps are strategic. Selection of product to export, carefully researching market demand, profitability, and sourcing feasibility. Then, selection of market to target, identifying specific countries or regions with good potential for your chosen product, considering factors like competition, regulations, and logistics. After that, it's about market engagement. Finding buyers in that chosen market through various channels like trade fairs, online portals, agents, or direct contact.
Finding buyers.
Then comes sampling, providing potential buyers with product samples for evaluation of quality and specifications. Accurate price and costing is crucial, calculating all costs involved, production, packing, freight, insurance, etc., and setting a competitive yet profitable export price. Negotiation with buyers follows to finalize terms like price, payment methods, delivery schedule, and quality standards. And finally, a very important step, covering risk through ECGC. ECGC stands for Export Credit Guarantee Corporation of India. It provides insurance cover to exporters against the risk of non-payment by overseas buyers due to commercial or political reasons. Mitigating risk is key.
ECGC for risk cover. Okay, that's 12 steps to get started. Now, what happens once an exporter actually secures an order? There's a whole process for fulfilling it too, right?
Absolutely. Securing the order is just the beginning. There's an equally detailed and rigorous process for processing an export order, and our sources also list 12 crucial steps for this execution phase. This is where the logistics, quality control, and extensive paperwork really come into play.
Another 12 steps. Let's hear them.
Okay, step 1 is confirmation of order and ensuring all terms are clear. Then, procurement of goods, either manufacturing them or sourcing them from other suppliers to fulfill the order specifications. Rigorous quality control is next, ensuring the goods meet the agreed-upon international standards and buyer requirements before shipment. Then, securing finance, if needed, perhaps pre-shipment finance from a bank to cover the costs of procurement and production. Meticulous labeling, packaging, and marking of the goods according to international shipping norms and the specific requirements of the destination country is vital. Arranging for insurance coverage for the goods during transit against risks like damage or loss, and then arranging delivery of the goods to the port or airport for shipment, coordinating with freight forwarders.
Okay, goods are ready and at the port. What happens next?
Now come the administrative and financial hurdles. Navigating customs procedures, preparing and submitting all the required export documents for clearance by customs authorities. This can be complex. Many exporters engage customs house agents, CHAs, who are licensed professionals specializing in handling these customs formalities on their behalf. Preparing all the necessary documentation is a huge part. This includes things like the commercial invoice, packing list, bill of lading or airway bill, certificate of origin, quality inspection certificates, etc. Accuracy is paramount. Then, submission of documents to the bank. If payment is via a letter of credit, LC, the exporter submits the specified documents to their bank to claim payment. And finally, the goal: realization of export proceeds. Receiving the payment from the overseas buyer through the banking channel within the stipulated time frame. And there's a key detail here regarding realization. Proceeds must generally be realized in freely convertible currency, like US dollars or euros. However, there's a specific exception for exports to Iran, where payment mechanisms are often different, sometimes involving non-convertible currencies or barter arrangements due to international sanctions and banking restrictions.
That Iran exception is important. Okay, so for our listeners focusing on specifics, remember the Foundational Foreign Trade Development and Regulation Act of 1992,
Yes, the legal basis.
the 12 steps to start an export business, and the 12 steps for processing an export order,
A clear roadmap.
and the full forms: IEC, Import-Export Code, RCMC, Registration Cum Membership Certificate, and ECGC, Export Credit Guarantee Corporation,
Key acronyms in Indian export.
along with that specific Iran exception for currency realization, highlighting how geopolitics impacts trade details.
Absolutely.
Now, what about bringing goods into the country? That's the import side of AQM trade. How is that regulated?
The import side also operates under the umbrella of the Foreign Trade Policy and the 1992 Act. Generally, import items in India fall within the scope of the country's XM policy regulation known as Open General License, or OGL.
OGL, Open General License, what does that mean?
It essentially means that most goods are considered freely importable into India unless they are specifically restricted, canalized, meaning importable only through designated government agencies, or prohibited outright by the government in the current policy. So OGL indicates a default state of permissibility for most items.
Okay, most things are OGL unless specified otherwise. Are there specific authorities involved?
Yes. We also have ICIA, which stands for Import Certificate Issuing Authorities. These are the specific government bodies or agencies responsible for issuing necessary import certificates or licenses for certain regulated goods, perhaps items that have health, safety, environmental, or strategic implications and require specific clearance before import.
ICIA for specific certificates. Now, our sources mention a significant tool called the Advanced License. What's its purpose?
The advance license is a very important mechanism, particularly for exporters. It is issued to allow the duty-free import of inputs, raw materials, components, consumables that are physically incorporated into a product which will eventually be exported. The core idea is to reduce the cost burden for exporters by exempting them from import duties on the materials they need to produce their export goods. This directly helps make Indian exports more price competitive in the global market. It's a key export promotion tool.
Duty-free inputs for export production. Can it be used in different scenarios?
Yes, an advance license can be issued for a few specific situations, catering to different parts of the export value chain. It can be for physical exports, which is the most straightforward case inputs for goods that will be directly shipped out of the country. It can also be issued for intermediate supplies. This means duty-free inputs supplied to another manufacturer exporter within India, who will then use those inputs in their own final export product. It supports the domestic supply chain for exports, or it can be for deemed exports. This refers to supplies made, for instance, to the main contractor of a project funded by an international agency, where the inputs are needed for manufacturing goods supplied within India but are treated as exports for policy purposes.
Okay, versatile tool. What about typical documents needed for imports?
Essential documents related to imports very often include an ex-factory invoice detailing the goods costs at the seller's factory, freight and insurance certificates showing transport costs and coverage, and frequently a letter of credit, LC. The LC, letter of credit, is a common and crucial payment mechanism in international trade where the importer's bank guarantees payment to the exporter, provided the exporter presents specific documents exactly as stipulated in the LC. It provides security for both parties.
Right. The LC provides payment security. So key takeaways for imports. Remember the full forms: OGL, Open General License; ICIA, Import Certificate Issuing Authorities;
Yes.
and LC, Letter of Credit.
Yes, fundamental terms.
And crucially, grasp the purpose of an advanced license, enabling that duty-free import of inputs specifically for export-oriented production.
A vital incentive.
Exactly. It directly links import benefits to export performance. Now, while India is a significant player in global trade, it's not without its challenges, especially on the export front. Our sources highlight quite a few persistent hurdles. They list 10 major problems faced by the export sector in India. These seem crucial for understanding the country's position and potential. What are they?
Yes, these are recurring themes. First, there's often a poor quality image perception for some Indian products in certain international markets. Whether fair or not, a perception can persist that Indian goods may not always meet the highest global quality standards consistently, which impacts demand and pricing power. Second, high costs. Various costs associated with exporting from India, like high port charges, inland transportation costs, bank charges for trade finance, can accumulate and make Indian exports less price competitive compared to those from other nations, even for comparable quality products.
Quality reception and high costs.
What else? Third, sometimes an issue of unreliability, particularly linked to an inability by some exporters to provide prompt and effective after-sale service for their products. In many sectors, good after-sale support is crucial for building customer loyalty and securing repeat business globally. Fourth, significant infrastructural bottlenecks. Things like chronic power shortages, interrupting production, breakdowns in utilities, inadequate or congested transport facilities, roads, railways, ports. These increase operational costs, cause delays, and can frustrate international buyers relying on timely delivery.
Reliability and infrastructure issues. Keep going.
Fifth, inadequate systems, often referring to poor or unreliable communication facilities and sometimes outdated administrative processes related to trade, which can hinder efficient information flow and transaction speed. Sixth, persistent supply problems. An inability by some sectors or firms to provide a continuous and smooth supply of adequate quantities for certain products can be a major issue. Consistency and reliability of supply are vital for international buyers managing their own production or retail schedules.
Systems and supply consistency. What's the next one? It sounds intriguing. Faceless presence.
Yes, this is a fascinating and telling point. It refers to the phenomenon where a product manufactured in India, if it carries a well-known foreign brand name, perhaps made under a license or contract, often fetches a higher price in the international market than the exact same product carrying an Indian brand name. It highlights a deep-seated branding and perception challenge for Indian companies trying to establish the value and recognition of their own brands globally. The Made in India tag doesn't always command the same premium.
Writing challenge. Okay. What are the other problems?
Eighth, uncertainties regarding future government policies and export incentive schemes. Frequent changes or lack of long-term clarity in policy can make it very difficult for exporters to undertake long-term planning, make significant investments, or commit to long-term contracts. Ninth, procedural complexities. Despite efforts at simplification, exporters often still face significant bureaucratic hurdles, complex documentation requirements, and time-consuming formalities related to customs, licensing, and banking, which increases transaction costs and delays. And finally, 10th, institutional rigidities. This refers to the fact that existing government institutions and administrative systems involved in trade promotion and regulation can sometimes be slow to adapt, inflexible, or lack coordination, making it difficult to implement new policies effectively or respond agilely to the rapidly changing global trade environment.
Uncertainties, procedures, rigid institutions. So understanding these 10 major problems faced by India's export sector provides crucial context.
Absolutely. It highlights the significant areas where policy intervention, strategic investment, especially in infrastructure and branding, and procedural reforms are needed to unlock the country's full export potential and improve its competitiveness on the global stage.
Okay, Section 5. Balancing the books, understanding payments and policy. To truly understand a country's financial health and its standing in the global economy, we need to talk about the balance of payment, usually shortened to BOP. It's essentially the financial report card of a nation's international dealings, right? Giving a snapshot of all the money flowing in and out.
That's a great way to put it. The balance of payment is the method countries use to monitor all international monetary transactions occurring between its residents and the rest of the world during a specific period. It's a comprehensive accounting record. It tracks every single financial flow payments for exports and imports of goods and services, income flows from investments, financial flows like loans and investments, and transfers like foreign aid or remittances, everything going in and out.
How often is it calculated?
Our sources tell us it's calculated very regularly, specifically every quarter and every calendar year. This consistent frequency, quarterly and annually, allows for continuous monitoring of a nation's international financial standing and helps policymakers identify emerging trends or problems quickly. And importantly, it accounts for all trades and transactions conducted by both the private sector, companies and individuals, and the public sector, government, giving a truly holistic view.
Okay, quarterly and yearly. There are some key terms here: credit and debit.
Yes, fundamental accounting terms in the BOP context. If a country has received money from an international transaction, like payment for exports or receiving foreign investment, this is recorded as a credit. Think of it like a positive entry, money coming in. Conversely, if a country has paid or given money for an international transaction, like payment for imports or investing abroad, the transaction is counted as a debit. Think of it like a negative entry, money going out.
Credits are inflows, debits are outflows. And this leads to deficits or surpluses.
Exactly. When you sum up all the credits and debits across different accounts over the period, you see the overall balance. A balance of payments deficit means that overall the country imports more goods, services, and capital than it exports. Essentially, more money is leaving the country, debits, than coming in, credits. This can put downward pressure on its currency's value and deplete its foreign exchange reserves.
Okay, deficit means more money out than in. What about a surplus?
Conversely, a balance of payments surplus means the country overall exports more goods, services, and capital than it imports. More money is coming into the country, credits, than leaving debits. This is generally seen as a sign of economic strength, allowing the country to build up its foreign exchange reserves and potentially strengthen its currency. It's a crucial indicator of a nation's economic standing relative to the rest of the world.
So, key things to remember. The definition of BOP as the monitor of all international monetary transactions. Its calculation frequency, every quarter and every calendar year.
Right, the regular tracking.
And the precise definitions of credit inflow, debit outflow, deficit outflows exceed inflows, and surplus inflows exceed outflows. Foundational terms.
Absolutely essential for understanding international finance.
Now, what happens if a country's BOP is significantly out of whack, usually meaning a persistent deficit, where more money is consistently flowing out than coming in? This can be a serious economic problem. Our sources outline 4 main methods or policy tools that governments can potentially use to correct this kind of BOP disequilibrium. What are they?
Yes, governments aren't helpless, they have tools, though each has trade-offs. The first method discussed is deflation. This refers to a deliberate government policy of reducing the overall quantity of money and credit in the economy, often through tighter monetary policy or fiscal austerity. The aim is to reduce domestic price levels and also reduce the money income of the people.
How does that help the BOP?
The theory is twofold. Lower domestic prices should make the country's exports cheaper and thus more attractive to foreign buyers, boosting export earnings credits. Simultaneously, reduced incomes for domestic consumers should dampen their demand for imported goods, reducing import payments, debits. However, deflation can be a painful process, often leading to economic slowdown, recession, and higher unemployment.
Deflation sounds harsh. What's the second method?
Second, depreciation. This refers to an economic event, a fall in the external value or rate of exchange of a country's currency, the home currency, in terms of other currencies, foreign currencies. If a currency depreciates, it makes the country's exports cheaper for foreigners to buy, so exports should increase, and makes imports more expensive for domestic residents, so imports should decrease. This market-driven adjustment can naturally help to improve the BOP position.
So depreciation is market-driven. How is that different from devaluation? Our sources make a distinction.
Ah, yes, this is a crucial distinction. While both involve a reduction in the currency's external value, devaluation refers to the official deliberate reduction of the external value of a currency by the government. It's a conscious policy decision announced by the central bank or treasury, often involving changing a fixed exchange rate peg. Whereas Depreciation, as we just discussed, means an automatic fall in the external value of the currency driven purely by market forces, supply and demand in the foreign exchange market, typically under a floating exchange rate system. It happens without direct official government intervention setting a new value.
That's a critical difference. Devaluation is official government action. Depreciation is market forces.
Got it. What's the fourth method for correcting BOP issues? The fourth method is exchange control. This is generally considered the most direct and often most drastic measure. It refers to the direct control over the buying and selling of foreign exchange by the country's central bank. Under a strict exchange control regime, all exporters might be required to surrender their foreign exchange earnings to the central bank. This pool of foreign exchange is then rationed out by the central bank among licensed importers, usually prioritizing only what are deemed essential imports, like vital medicines, fuel, or critical industrial inputs. It directly restricts imports by limiting access to foreign currency. It's a very interventionist approach, often used during crises, but it can also lead to inefficiencies, black markets, and corruption.
Direct control over foreign currency. Okay.
Yeah.
So understanding these four methods for correcting BOP, disequilibrium, deflation, depreciation, devaluation, and exchange control is vital.
Yes, they represent a spectrum of policy responses, from influencing the whole economy to direct market intervention.
And specifically, listeners should lock down that critical distinction between depreciation, market-driven fall, and devaluation, official government reduction of a currency's value.
Yeah.
That reflects fundamental differences in exchange rate policy.
Absolutely key distinction.
Now, behind all these trade dynamics, the regulations, the BOP issues, are the policies and the institutional frameworks set by governments. These are constantly adapting. Our sources detail India's extensive consultative setup for foreign trade policy. It sounds like a complex ecosystem designed to formulate and execute these crucial policies. There are 6 tiers in this consultative setup.
That's right, a multi-layered structure. Tier 1 is the apex body, the Department of Commerce. Tier 2 consists of various consultative and deliberative bodies that provide advice and feedback. Tier 3 is made up of commodity-specific organizations focusing on particular export sectors. Tier 4 includes service institutions that provide essential support, like quality control or packaging standards. Tier 5 covers government trading organizations that might be directly involved in trade themselves. And Tier 6 comprises the state-level export promotion agencies, bringing in regional perspectives and implementation capacity. This tiered structure aims for broad consultation and coordinated action.
A comprehensive structure. Let's elaborate on some key players, starting at the top with Tier 1. The Department of Commerce. What's its role?
The Department of Commerce is the apex ministry at the central government level in India. It holds the primary responsibility for formulating and executing the country's foreign trade policy and for initiating various export promotional measures designed to boost India's trade performance. Recognizing the challenges exporters face, it has even set up a dedicated Exporters' Grievances Redressal Cell to directly address their concerns and suggestions.
The main Ministry for Trade. Does it have specific divisions?
Yes, it's quite structured internally. Our sources indicate it has 6 distinct divisions, each with a specific functional focus. There's the Trade Policy Division, which monitors international organizations like UNCTAD and the WTO, engages in trade negotiations, and formulates overall trade strategy. The Foreign Trade Territorial Division focuses on developing and nurturing trade relationships with specific countries and geographical regions around the world. The Export Products Division deals with policies and promotion related to specific product categories. The Export Industries Division specifically regulates and promotes certain key sectors like tobacco, rubber, and cardamom, which have unique production and trade dynamics. The Export Services Division focuses on promoting India's crucial service exports, including sectors like handloom, textiles, woolens, silk, and ready-made garments. And finally, the Economic Division, which provides the analytical backbone, focusing on broader export strategies, economic analysis, long-term planning, and policy review.
6 divisions covering policy, regions, products, industries, services, and economics. Comprehensive. What about the Board of Trade? When was that set up?
The Board of Trade was set up on a specific date, May 5th, 1989. That date, May 5th, 1989, is a key detail. Its critical purpose is to provide an effective, high-level mechanism to maintain continuous dialogue between the government and the key players in trade and industry. It discusses major developments and challenges in international trade.
And who chairs this important board?
The Minister of Commerce is the chairman of the Board of Trade. This underscores its high-level importance and ensures direct access and input to the top policymaker responsible for trade.
Commerce Minister chairs it. Now, you mentioned a grievance cell within the department. Is there another dedicated one?
Yes, besides the one in the department, there's also a dedicated grievances cell established specifically to entertain and monitor the disposal of grievances and suggestions received from the trade community. This important committee is headed by the Director General of Foreign Trade, DGFT.
The DGFT heads that grievance cell. What is the overall role of the DGFT?
The DGFT, Director General of Foreign Trade, is a crucial figure. This office, under the Department of Commerce, is primarily responsible for formulating the detailed procedures and implementing India's export and import policy, translating the broad policy framework into concrete regulations and notifications. And significantly, the DGFT's network of regional offices, which are strategically located across various states and union territories to serve exporters locally, are called regional licensing authorities. These RLAs play a direct and vital role in implementing trade policies at the ground level, issuing licenses like the IEC code, administering incentive schemes, and facilitating trade operations for businesses in their region.
DGFT implements policy, RLAs handle things regionally. Is the Ministry of Textiles also involved?
Yes, given the huge importance of textiles and garments in India's export basket, the Ministry of Textiles also plays a significant role. It has its own separate export promotion division, along with various advisory boards, development corporations, export councils, and commodity boards specifically focused on supporting the textile sector's production and export efforts.
Specialized support for textiles. What about the broader institutional framework beyond these main ministries?
Beyond these government bodies, the broader institutional framework for export promotion includes 19 export promotion councils, EPCs. That number 19 is specific. These EPCs cover different product groups like engineering goods, chemicals, leather, plastics, etc., and work to promote and develop exports within their specific sectors. Additionally, there are 9 statutory commodity boards. Again, the number 9 is specific. These boards, like the Tea Board, Coffee Board, Spices Board, Rubber Board, deal comprehensively with the entire range of issues concerning production, development, and marketing for specific agricultural or primary commodities, providing integrated support from the farm plantation right through to export.
19 export promotion councils, 9 statutory commodity boards. Important numbers. What about coordinating with states?
There's a state cell within the Department of Commerce that acts as a nodal agency specifically for interacting with state governments on ICSNE matters. This ensures better coordination between central government policies and state-level initiatives or infrastructure related to export and import activities originating from specific regions.
Connecting central and state efforts. And what about support for smaller businesses? They're vital too.
Absolutely. For smaller businesses, the Development Commissioner, Small Industries Organization, often referred to as SIBO or MSMEDI now, plays a key role. Its headquarters is located in Delhi. This organization has a network of extension centers located in almost all states and union territories across India. They provide vital promotional services, technical assistance, training, and information almost at the doorsteps of small-scale industries and cottage units, helping them navigate the complexities of international trade, improve quality, and scale up for export.
Help for small businesses, headquartered in Delhi. Wow, this consultative setup is incredibly detailed and multi-layered. So, key points to remember here. The 6 tiers consultative setup for overall policy. The Department of Commerce as the apex ministry with its 6 divisions. The Board of Trade setup date, May 5, 1989, and its chairman, Minister of Commerce.
Key facts there.
The crucial role of the DGST, Director General of Foreign Trade, and the regional implementation arms, the regional licensing authorities. The specific numbers: 19 export promotion councils and 9 statutory commodity boards.
19 and 9, yes.
And the location of the headquarters of the Small Industries Organization in Delhi. These details really highlight the intricate governance structure behind India's global trade efforts.
It's a complex machinery designed to manage a complex area.
Wow, we have certainly covered a massive amount of ground today. I mean, from the broad, almost philosophical aims of globalization right down to the nuts and bolts of trade finance, BOP calculations, and the intricate details of government policy structures in India. We've seen just how complex and interconnected our world truly is, right down to the number of trade councils, the specific dates of legislative acts like the 1992 one, and the nuanced differences between things like depreciation and devaluation. It's a truly complex, dynamic system.
Indeed. And hopefully, understanding these core definitions, what an MNC is versus a TNC, the different methods of globalization like FDI versus licensing, the conditions needed for trade to flourish, and grasping the mechanisms of international trade and finance isn't just, academic. It provides you, the listener, with a much more robust framework to actually make sense of the daily news, to understand economic shifts you read about, and even to trace the origins of the products that surround you in your daily life. It helps you see the invisible forces and structures at play.
What's really fascinating, I think, is how these structures and concepts we discuss, things like the Foundational Foreign Trade Development and Regulation Act of 1992 that governs so much of India's trade, or the long-term economic rhythms described by Kondratiev cycles, how these things dictate so much of our global rhythm, often unseen.
That's right. It often boils down to that continuous underlying push for greater integration, greater efficiency, finding new markets, despite all the challenges, the potential for disequilibrium in the BOP, and the political complexities involved.
This raises an important question, I think, for you, our listener, to ponder after this deep dive. How do you see these powerful global forces, economic integration, cultural exchange, political cooperation, environmental challenges shaping not just grand economies and national policies, but the choices we make every single day?
That's a great closing thought. From the products you choose to buy and where they come from, to the news sources you consume and the perspectives they offer, even the cultural influences you encounter online or in your community. Think about the visible, and maybe more importantly, the invisible threads of globalization that are woven into your own life. How does it impact you directly and indirectly?
Definitely something to reflect on. Join us next time for another deep dive where we'll continue to unpack the world, one fascinating topic at a time.